Okay.
All right.
Are we good to go?
Yeah, I'm good. Y'all good?
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Generation, the podcast, the audio companion to the HBO Max original series, Generation. I'm Gigi Goode, Master of Disguise.
Oh, that's a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Whembley, Sewell, Editor-in-Chief of Them. Today, we're talking to Zelda Barnz, co-creator of Generation, and Yuli Schlesinger, who stars as Nathan. First up, Episode 3. Gigi, what were the highlights for you?
Diva, listen, we are on episode 3 so far, and I feel like every time we talk about this, every episode I'm saying this is going to be one of the most important overarching themes of an episode, and I have a feeling that's only going to continue. There is just so much in this episode that I feel needs to be talked about and needs to be normalized, and we will get further into that as we talk to Yuli and Zelda a bit more, but this episode literally had everything you need to be wrapped in. It had the action, it had the drama, it had the knight in shining armor coming to save the day. Like, let's just get into it. What did you think?
I'm going to start with something a little bit lighter, if you will. I simply love the fact that we're exploring 3 very different experiences of getting quote-unquote toasted. That is the title of the episode, after all.
Yes!
So I just really enjoyed the simple pleasure of watching that all unravel, which
brings me back.
Iconic. So, I mean, should we spark up some conversation?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and start with our main girl, Zelda. Hello,
Yes,
Zelda.
hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And you too, Yuli. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right. So, because we have you here, Zelda, and of course, Yuli, who plays Nathan, let's talk about bisexuality.
Yes. Always.
My favorite topic.
Yes.
Same.
Coming out. And I'm saying that with big air quotes for those who can't see me, because obviously coming out is something that is always changing, something that is so intimately one's own. So here we go, coming out. Nathan's coming out is probably unlike any other I have ever seen. And when Gigi said that there was drama, she was not joking around.
Girl.
Zelda, first I need to know, and I am praying about this answer. Was your coming out as dramatic as Nathan's?
Definitely not. Unfortunately, I wish I had had my jumping off a boat moment. But no,
Right.
I came out in a letter home from summer camp. I realized I liked girls when I was 14, and then a year later, I had I thought I might be a lesbian for a little bit, and then I realized I was bi, and at that point, I decided I should probably let my parents know. And actually, my dad had been asking if I was a lesbian for a couple months at that point, so I was like, it's time that I tell him what's really going on. So yeah, I was at summer camp, and I wrote a letter to my parents, basically about summer camp, and then at the very end, I was like, also, I'm bi, love Zelda. And they wrote back, and they just like made fun of me for their whole letter, and it's like having gay parents, it's so nice for them to be able to joke about it, and I know that they're not serious. It was great. It was a lot of fun, but I did not get to jump off a boat, so I know, so disappointing.
A metaphor of jumping off a boat
Exactly.
into calmer waters.
Yes.
Yes.
But let's play that clip because it is one that needs to be heard.
Please.
Just one more sec, because what I'm trying to say to Naomi is that I never meant to hurt you, and I know that sounds completely ridiculous, because in theory I should have thought of that before I hooked up with your boyfriend, but sometimes life is just a day late and $1 short. To clarify, I also like girls.
Y'all, my God. I mean, like, the amount of just, like, I can't tell you how much I was just stress sweating watching that whole scene go down. It's like
spiraling.
just so, it literally, like, full spiraling. What on earth was happening in the writer's room for this episode, for this scene, you know? Like,
Yes.
I have to know.
Absolutely. This scene was so much fun to write, and one of the very, very early versions of this scene was actually one of our audition scenes for Nathan. So we had actually initially put this scene in the pilot, which was really, you know, starting with a bang. It's obviously evolved so much, and we wanted to kind of keep that, like, boat, like, stealing the show of the wedding and coming out moment. And it's obviously evolved a lot since then. The kind of situation has changed. Everything leading up to it has changed. The speech itself has changed a lot. But it was definitely something we talked about in the writer's room. It was a lot of fun just thinking about the way that he's trying to apologize to his sister. And he's high and he's, like, so stressed with all these people in front of him. And it just comes out so wrong. And I love that shot, too, on the back of his head where you can see all these people who he kind of doesn't know that he's just told this huge secret to. And then Naomi, of course, is very thrilled with it.
Yes, it was so much fun to watch, and I'm sure, Yuli, it was so much fun to film. But when you're in the writer's room and talking about that proper representation for a bi character, I want to know what your thought process is.
Absolutely. I mean, I think specifically with bi men, I think bi men and bi boys are ignored so much in media. And I think that we really wanted to make sure that for this character, bisexuality was not just a stepping stone towards gay. And for this character, bisexuality wasn't just an experiment. It was his actual identity. So we wanted to keep that really strong. And with all our other bi characters too, I mean, some of them aren't necessarily bi, some of them are fluid and don't want to put a label on it, but we definitely have a lot of characters who experience attraction in different ways and have more fluid sexualities than just straight or gay. And I know so many kids who don't want to put a label on their sexuality but are attracted to all genders, and I know so many kids who label themselves as bi and that's who they are, and people always question it. It's something that people always think they're doing it for attention, or it's just a phase, or it's just a stepping stone to gay. And I think it's so incredibly important that bi kids see themselves represented truthfully on screen.
This one is for you, Yuli. I need to know, because obviously not only are you playing a character who is toasted, you also have to go to a place to be like, all right. And I'm putting myself there. Like, you feel this episode, and like, I feel like I'm somebody on the boat right now.
Yeah.
You have to go to a place where you're like, okay, what is the wildest way I can kind of ramble through this confession and bare my heart and soul, not only apologize to my sister, but you see somebody that you have a crush on kind of in the crowd. You see your dad, who clearly has his own way of talking through life's important moments, and your mom, who is quite a wild one too. So how do you get to a place as an actor to take on a moment that is so loaded?
Yeah. Wow. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, the script does most of the work for me, to be honest. But there was something so palpable about just being in front of all of those people while I was doing it that adds this like level of like just natural anxiety of just like just performing in front of this crowd of people that I have no idea who any of them are. I mean, I just had so much fun exploring the whole toast from like right when I got the first draft of the script and just going through it and marking it up, and it's so intense and it's so cringy and it's so like heartbreaking and vulnerable, and it's so beautiful, but it's so like, it was a funny thing because like to me, thinking as Nathan, I was like, God, this is so heartbreaking and brutal, and it's so sad and emotional, and it's like a really funny moment in the show also, though, that like I didn't really like think about it that much, but when I saw it, it was just like, oh, that's actually really funny. That's a really funny situation. But it's crushing. It's really crushing.
It's very funny for like two different types of people watching this show will either think it's really funny or really heartbreaking. And that is, that the cisgendered middle America straight people who are watching will be like, oh, this is just so darn funny. And then everyone else who identifies as queer or as a part of the community is just like, oh my God, I cannot believe he's having to do this right now. But Yuli, what was it like for you stepping into this role? Do you find yourself identifying with Nathan a lot as you're going about this entire experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a weird thing because like in terms of like family dynamics, like me and Nathan could not be more different. I mean, my family is very lower class and very left leaning, like super accepting. Like, you know, I never had any kind of like big coming out. Really, it was just kind of like this understood thing that never really needed to be talked about. But I think Nathan is just struggling so hard to figure out who he is outside of his family dynamic and outside of all of these societal expectations and pressures. And I feel that completely. I mean, I still feel like I have no idea who the fuck I am, you know? And so it's like
totally.
And yeah, so I absolutely relate to him in terms of his, I think, like emotional state of being a lot of the times. I also am very neurotic and very anxious and tend to ramble quite a bit. But yeah, it's been fun to kind of throw myself into this world that I really never got to explore or be a part of.
And I think a big part of the character you play is his relationship to his sister, of course, Naomi, who's played by Chloe East. And while there's so much life in that dynamic and there's so much fun to it, and you can feel their closeness, there's also a lot of conflict. And I'd love to play a clip that showcases that.
I'm just curious what leg you have to stand on after you sucked my boyfriend's dick.
I'm sorry, okay? I told you that I didn't even get my mouth on it.
You just walk through life thinking you could do fucked up things and say you're sorry and everything will be fine. But that was a really shitty thing you did. Like, I really fucking liked him. So, like, why would you do that?
Look, I know that I can't say I'm sorry, but like I genuinely feel like shit about it, okay? And like Mom says, hurt people, you know?
Are you high?
I think the matching outfits really brings out the scene.
Ties everything together. But Yuli, I would love if you could tell us about what it was like to portray such a unique family dynamic and how you worked with Chloe, who again plays Naomi, to make it feel so real.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing to me because, again, the family dynamic, just in general, but also so like it's so specific having a twin sister. And me and my sister she's much older than I am. And so I never had that kind of like extremely close knit kind of like sibling rivalry relationship. But I mean, Chloe just made it so easy. I mean, she's incredible. She's incredible to work with. Like whenever we get into a scene, she just like, she just tried so many different things in such a variety. And I feel like she just made it really, really easy. And also the writing, obviously. But it was interesting. I watched a lot of interviews with twins before we shot the pilot. And it was always so interesting to me to like just how in sync they were about everything, like about every little detail without ever having to like talk about it or any, like, it's just so tight knit. And something that was always really interesting to me about that dynamic is that you don't have your own identity really separate from your twin, you know? Like you are just constantly seen as a pair. And I feel like that just really adds to Nathan's struggle to find out, you know, who he really is outside of his family.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, yeah, it's just interesting, definitely adding on to what Yuli said. I think twins are often treated like a unit, like not individual people. They're treated as like a unit in that sense, which is kind of interesting. And I definitely think Chloe and Yuli do such a good job of like bringing that out with Nathan and Naomi and how they're so close and they're kind of treated like they're always together, like they're joint almost, but then they also fight so much, and kind of that closeness can be so tricky because when you spend all your time with someone, eventually they're going to do something that will really annoy you. I think that's a pretty general sibling dynamic also, not just necessarily twins. But yeah, I have a younger brother, and like living with him, sharing a bathroom with him, definitely like we're super close, but we also fight a lot.
They totally take it to the next level by sharing a love or like interest, if you will. They share everything plus the same type, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Whenever I've dated guys, my brother always jokes. This has never happened, but my brother always jokes. He's like, "What if I stole him from you?" And I'm just like, "Okay, don't."
We'll have to find you both a boat to fight it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. One of you's jumping.
Yes.
We're talking about episode 3 of the HBO Max series Generation, and we're going to get into a lot more after a quick break.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We are talking to Generation creator Zelda Barnz and Yuli Schlesinger, who stars as Nathan.
So, in this episode, things are definitely budding between Nathan and Chester, to say the least. There's been a lot of pining leading up to this episode, and Nathan is checking out Chester pretty much for the whole time. And then Chester obviously dramatically saves him at the end, you know, with that beautiful underwater scene. You can kind of see Nathan's like slight smirk as it's happening. I clocked that. But in the same episode, Nathan also shares a pretty intimate moment with Ariana while shotgunning the joint. This is a question both for you, Yuli, and Zelda. What did you want to show through Nathan navigating these different feelings and crushes and moments?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's so much when you're in high school. There are so many people who you kind of think about, like, and so many people you have tension with, and you kind of wonder if there's anything there. And something that we really wanted to show with this show specifically that I think we kind of do with Nathan and Chester is, like, I had so many crushes in high school that, like, nothing ever happened with. Like, I had two in particular, two people who I, like, really, really liked a lot, and just nothing ever happened. And that happens so often when you're a teenager. And I think that, like, I don't know, it's so interesting to me how shows always kind of have a gradual, like, friends to relationship kind of storyline a lot of the time. And even if one person is initially not interested, and I don't know, I think that in high school it's so common for you to like someone and them to not quite feel the same way. So we definitely kind of wanted to show that with Nathan and Chester a little bit in their dynamic, that Nathan's kind of pining after him and might never necessarily get to, like, have that moment with him. But also Ariana says a little bit, kind of implies that she's had a thing for Nathan for a while, that she always thought he was cute, and it's just kind of this sweet moment. But also Ariana is Naomi's best friend, so that's kind of another, like, twin, like, future drama moment. Yeah, so it's all just very complicated. But also I think Nathan's kind of in this mindset where he's just like, I want to kind of, like, let myself have this, because Chester's not really giving me anything here, and also, like, Naomi's mad at me about to be mad at me, so it's just, yeah, I think it's interesting. He likes her and he just doesn't think about it, he just kind of goes for it. And I think that that's also very real for teenagers. I know so many kids who got into relationships so quickly in high school without really knowing that person, just because they, like, wanted to feel like somebody liked them. And I think that's also kind of what's happening a little bit here, is they both just want to feel like someone is interested in them and likes them, and I think that they're just kind of acting on that.
Yeah, I think Nathan's just looking for love. He just
Absolutely
really wants to be like loved and cared about unconditionally. I feel like that's like his like ultimate mode, is just he's such a little romantic, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a sweet moment when they're just shotgunning and talking, and I feel like he just feels kind of like seen and heard for even just like a small brief moment. And it's such a high school thing of just like, you're smoking with your friend, and like there's just like a little bit of lingering something there, and then they both go for it, and it's so sweet. It's such a cute moment.
The portrayals of friendship in this episode were very sweet. Aside from the lovey-dovey, we still can't just deviate from all the really fun friend moments, such as, you know, like Greta and Riley and Chester getting high together at the aquarium, which looked like so much fun. Yes. I would have killed to do that in high school. My parents would have never let me do that. But, you know, like that, and riding around in the convertible and taking pictures of each other. So, Yuli, did you all form like real true friendships being on set and shooting together? And like how did you all get to know each other aside from just filming?
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly been one of the best parts about shooting this, is just that like the whole cast just feels like one big family. Everyone's so amazing and so sweet and so talented, and it's just been such a gift and a joy to like get to know all of these incredible people and watch them work, and, you know, just get to know them on a personal level. So yeah, of course, yeah, we'd we'd get together and hang out and talk, and we'd do whatever you do, whatever you can do in COVID times.
In a pandemic.
That's the thing is you and Zelda, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's kind of like the only people that you really, it's got to be nice to be able to actually see these people, and because they're the only people that you're seeing, I'm sure you've also formed friendships with the cast.
Absolutely, yeah. They're all so amazing. They're all so talented and smart and fun and thoughtful about their characters and just such great people. I honestly love the cast so much. This is like our dream cast. It's like everything we envisioned. Yeah, we really, really love them. They're so great.
It does seem like a click within a click within a click of like not only does it exist, in this incredible show that makes me want to go right back to high school. Seriously. There is a future Mulberth narrative
Yes.
that comes at the beginning of each episode. And every single episode, it gets a little bit more and more intense. Zelda, I need to know.
Well, the kind of like mall birth, like some of the big moments are coming sooner than you think, first of all. Second of all, honestly, what I think we kind of wanted to do with this mall birth, the reason we kind of made this such a big part of our show, such a like big opener at the beginning of every episode, and then each episode on the timeline, you get a little bit closer to that mall birth happening. Generally, I think the way teenage sexuality is talked about, the worst thing that can happen is teen pregnancy. I think there's this huge stigma around teen pregnancy, and just it's so interesting the way that we all talk about teen sexuality and how irresponsible teenagers will just get pregnant, and it's such a big thing. And I think a lot of teen shows have like a pregnancy storyline, and so what we wanted to do was just start our show there. We were thinking, like, what's the most taboo thing that can possibly come from like teenagers being open and honest about their sexualities and just having sex and not making it a taboo thing. And so we wanted to just start with like worst case scenario, somebody gets pregnant, and then we wanted to kind of go from there and see how that evolved, and how we got to that place of somebody giving birth in a mall bathroom without knowing that she was pregnant. So we kind of we started there, and then we're kind of leading up to it with each episode.
Well, I'm on the edge of my seat and also a blanket, just waiting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, this one is for you, Yuli. I would love to know, because Nathan is such a complex character and has so many nuances to him that are, not even just about identity. I think it's also just about coming of age and coming into your own as a human being, and how you connect with other people and make friends, and how you carry yourself and your own confidence. I think we saw that in the party scenes and the lockdown scene as well, that he's figuring out a lot just at like how he shows up. And I want to know what you've learned about yourself by playing a character like Nathan.
Wow. What I've learned about myself. I feel like I try and avoid thinking about that. I feel like most of what I've learned throughout this whole process is mostly as an actor and creator. I feel like I've never gotten to live with a character this long or a project this long, and especially not something that's so special to me and so important to me. And then I feel like I've kind of gotten the opportunity to be a little freer and put less expectation on myself, which I guess could kind of honestly relate back to Nathan's journey a little bit, because he's kind of trying to do the same thing, I think.
Well, not to be all back in my day, like I'm 100 years old, but growing up, I dealt with a lot of people, even within the community, and I say that again with air quotes, that actively kind of invalidated bisexuality. Like you were saying, Zelda, it's a stepping stone to something else, or you're confused, or one day you'll kind of figure it out. And whether that invalidation came consciously, subconsciously, it still was there. There was a feeling that it was there. But I can see this behavior kind of shifting from invalidation to almost a celebration. Like, you can be a lot more fluid. You can really approach love and your own identity on your own terms. And I do think that Generation is a great example of this, and so many of the characters really embody this message. This is a question both for you, Yuli, and Zelda. How do you think people are viewing or thinking about or talking about bisexuality today?
That's a really good question. I think something with this show that we wanted to touch on is like, how do we bridge that gap and how do we facilitate conversations about bisexuality and fluidity with these different generations who have such different perspectives on bisexuality. And I think today it has changed a lot. I think generally people are very open and also open to experimenting. I've known a lot of people who question their sexualities and then are straight or are gay or are bi. And it's just interesting to me how people are more open to the concept of questioning too, and how you can spend time questioning and then realize you're straight. Right. Just because you question does not necessarily mean that you are part of the LGBTQ community. But it's important to kind of, question those norms, question heteronormativity, and I don't know, experiment and doesn't have to mean anything. I think that's just something really interesting that a lot of younger people are more open to now.
Yeah, I feel like the conversation is so much more open now, just by nature of Gen Z and just being so much more open to talking about these things. And with the rise of social media, it's so much more accessible now to be able to have these conversations and talk to people, who are in your community, but not necessarily geographically in your community, which I feel like is so, so unbelievably helpful to so many people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when it comes to the generational gap and divide between the understanding of this, I firmly believe that sometimes the universe just has its ways of teaching lessons, and sometimes that is giving you a child that is going to teach you that lesson, whether you like it or not. And
100%.
I just love that.
Stunning. Well, thank you so much, Zelda and Yuli, for being here, for chatting with us, and for all of your many words of wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yes. So nice to talk to you both. Yuli, so nice to meet you. Zelda, a pleasure as always. We will be here every single week breaking down each and every episode with the show's creators, writers, and stars, and I cannot wait to get further into it.
Generation the Podcast is a production of HBO Max and iHeartRadio, hosted by us, Gigi Goode and Whembley Sewell.
The podcast is produced and written by Phoebe Unter, written and researched by Sierra Kaiser, and engineered, edited, and mixed by Matt Stillo. It's executive produced by Ethan Fixell.
If you haven't already subscribed, rated, or reviewed Generation the Podcast, please do so on the iHeartRadio app, HBO Max, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And of course, be sure to watch the series itself on HBO Max. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.